Okay, today we're stepping completely away from the bright, noisy surface of our everyday lives. We are preparing to cross the threshold into the deep, eerie, and honestly, endlessly fascinating world of global mythology. We're going on a journey together, an epic, interconnected descent straight into the unknown. Because throughout human history, our ancestors didn't just use myths as, entertaining fireside tales. No, they used them as absolutely vital psychological maps. Maps that show us exactly how to navigate the absolute darkest parts of our own minds, survive our deepest fears, and ultimately return entirely transformed. Welcome to The Explainer.
Okay, let's dive right into this. You've probably heard this stark quote from the legendary mythologist Joseph Campbell before. "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." It perfectly sets the stakes for our journey. You see, to find true meaning, to find that ultimate treasure of self-actualization, we literally have to leave the safety of the known world. We have to willingly walk into the dark to face some seriously terrifying testers. I mean, it's human nature to want to stay comfortable, right? To stay inside the boundaries of what we already know. But as this quote reminds us, avoiding the darkness only ensures we never actually find the light we're searching for.
And what's wild is that this journey always follows a very specific rhythm. Across virtually every culture on Earth, the hero's journey is broken down into exactly 3 distinct stages: departure, initiation, and return. For this, I want you to position yourself as the hero. You are the one stepping out of your ordinary life today, initiating into a sequence of ancient psychological trials and preparing to return with some powerful new wisdom. You are about to make this exact 3-part psychological descent. But, as you can see here, crossing into the unknown is never free. Enter the Threshold Guardian. Whether you're seeking spiritual wealth, creative freedom, or deep, enduring love, you will eventually hit a boundary. And right at that boundary stands a guardian whose sole job is to test your commitment. They demand we prove our readiness. They're essentially asking, are you really prepared for what comes next, or are you just a tourist in the dark? Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is how entirely disconnected cultures created the exact same psychological gatekeepers. Take Mesoamerica. The hero twins from the Popol Vuh had to outwit the terrifying lords of Xibalba, literally just to survive the underworld. Then, over in West Africa, we see trickster figures like Anansi waiting at the crossroads, demanding a test of wit and adaptability before you can even think about passing. And in South Asia, the half-man, half-lion Narsamapha acts as the Lord of Transitions, appearing right on the threshold to strike down arrogance and restore cosmic balance. They look different, sure, but they all serve the exact same function, to ensure you are truly worthy to cross. So, let's transition from the edge of the map deep, deep into the dark Slavic forest, to face our very first terrifying tester. Imagine it. The trees grow thick, the daylight just completely fades, and suddenly you come across an unbelievable sight. A hut. But it's not resting on the ground. It's spinning. And it's perched atop huge, scaly, yellow chicken legs. Real estate in the underworld is pretty wild, but this is the domain of Baba Yaga. She represents the ultimate marginal figure, standing directly on the boundary between the world of the living and the land of the dead. And if you manage to approach her hut, she doesn't just hand you a magic sword or a healing potion. No way. She gives you impossible chores. She might demand you sort thousands of tiny poppy seeds from a massive pile of dirt. Why? To test your discernment, to force you to figure out how to separate what is actually life-giving from what is just useless dirt. She might even threaten to throw you right into her oven, which historically symbolizes the womb of rebirth, where our weak, naive selves are completely burned away. See, Baba Yaga isn't just evil. She is the absolute marrow of the instinctive psyche. She's a fierce teacher who alchemizes our paralyzing fear into necessary consciousness, and she rewards the survivor with a glowing, fiery skull of wisdom to light their way home. But what happens if we fail to develop that discernment? Well, we fall prey to what folklore calls the natural predator, which is perfectly embodied in the chilling French tale of Bluebeard. The predator demands naive compliance. He wants you over-domesticated, ignoring your gut feelings, and staying out of the locked rooms of your own psyche. But the intuitive self? It recognizes that unlocking those forbidden doors and facing the dark, bloody truths inside is absolutely vital for your survival. You have to face the dark warnings of predators in your life, for sure, or they will quite literally steal your spirit.
Let's cross over to Japan for a second and see how this builds in a totally different cultural context. In the tale of the Crescent Moon Bear, a woman whose husband returns from war just consumed by rage has to climb a freezing, jagged mountain to pluck a single hair from the throat of a fierce bear. And she pulls it off, but only through immense patience and deep respect for the wild beast. This perfectly illustrates the flow of our inner emotional world. Our own raw rage, when we actually test it, face it head-on, and respect its power, can be alchemized into a tool for profound protection and wisdom, rather than just a force that destroys our lives.
Okay, I want to give us a brief cognitive resting point here to absorb this, because it's heavy, and it underpins literally everything we're talking about today: the life, death, life cycle. It's the natural rhythm of the universe: animation, development, decline, death, and, this is the crucial part, reanimation. Something has to end for something new to begin. Keep this deeply in mind, because we're about to plunge straight from the ember-orange firelight of the dark forest into the freezing, crushing depths of the oceanic underworld. Down here, way down in the icy, bioluminescent waters of Inuit mythology, lies Skeleton Woman. She was thrown off a cliff by her father and has rested at the bottom of the sea for an eon, her bones picked totally clean. She represents the absolute terror we have of the death aspect in our lives, specifically when it comes to our relationships. When a fisherman accidentally snags her bones on his line and drags her to the surface, he is horrified. He runs away, dragging her clattering skeleton right behind him. And honestly, this is exactly what we do when we first hook into the terrifying, messy reality of true intimacy. We run.
So the crucial point is how the fisherman finally reacts. He doesn't keep running, he stops, and he turns to face his terror. He brings her into his snow house, and by the light of his fire, he patiently untangles her jumbled bones. It's like a giant, terrifying puzzle. And while he sleeps, a single tear of true compassion falls from his eye, which she drinks. This gives her the power to sing flesh back onto her bones and become a living woman again. The takeaway? We can't just fish for fantasies in our lives. True relationships, true callings, they require doing the incredibly difficult work of sitting by the fire and untangling our deepest fears.
This quote completely reframes our modern, honestly kind of sanitized fear of the death aspect. We're constantly taught that death just leads to more death, that an ending is a permanent failure. But it simply isn't true. Death is always in the process of incubating new life. Think about it. In a single, long-lasting love relationship, there are many endings, many deaths of illusions, and many deaths of our former selves. But those endings are merely the necessary precursors to new, much more profound beginnings. You have to let the old rot away so the new can actually grow.
Okay, let's shift the pacing here. We are now rising up from the underworld ocean, breaking the surface, and stepping onto the misty shores of the Celtic world. Here is where we meet the Selkie, the seal woman. In the myth, she sheds her seal skin to dance joyfully on the sand in the moonlight. But a hunter spots her, steals her skin, and hides it. And without her skin, she cannot return to the sea. She's forced to marry him, to live on land, and to adapt to a world that completely and utterly misunderstands her wild nature.
And this brilliantly illustrates our own psychological reality. When the Selkie lives a life on land without her skin, she becomes pale. Her hair starts falling out. She goes through the motions of life, sure, but her spirit withers, and her eyes are constantly searching the horizon. That stolen sealskin perfectly mirrors our own loss of vitality when we conform to societal demands, when we stay in deadening jobs or draining relationships. But reclaiming the skin means finding exactly where you hid your true self, putting it back on, and returning to the waters of your own innate, wild autonomy. It is the ultimate act of reclamation. So, looking at the whole shebang, we've covered an epic expanse of global mythology today, but it all points back to the exact same internal journey. To emerge transformed, you have to do these three things. You have to stop running from the threshold guardians like Baba Yaga and actually let them test you. You have to accept the unending life/death/life cycle, untangling the bones of Skeleton Woman instead of hiding from inevitable endings. And finally, you have to search the dark corners of your life to retrieve your innate wild soul skin. This is your descent, and this is your return.
I want to leave you with this to think about. Look at your own life right now. What threshold are you currently refusing to cross because you're afraid of the guardians waiting there? If you are willing to step into that forest, if you're willing to dive into that freezing ocean, what wild soul skin awaits you in the dark? Keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next explainer.